All right, cool. So we're recording now. So first of all, thank you everybody for joining us this evening for the St. John Summer Swim League admin official training. We've always called this the computer operator or the computer person. And I don't know about you guys, but I've always hated that. I'm a software engineer by trade, but I always hate being called like the computer guy. So what this really is, I'll explain why we're using it in a minute. But really what the technical terms for this is that, we are the timing operator and the computer and scoring operator. Those are like the official terms that USA Swimming uses. We're not a USA Swimming league, but there's a lot of stuff that's there that we can borrow for use inside of our league. So just to start off here, so my name is Andrew Connell. And I've been doing this, I've been the admin official or the head timing / computer scoring operator for the Durban Crossing Dolphins for the last 3 years. My wife, Meredith Connell, is the one that's the president of the team. But then I've also been, I guess you could say, like the main computer person for the league for really just the last year. But I was working kind of as I guess you could say as like an apprentice with Linda the year before as well. And I've run the last 2 champs meets as well. So got a little bit of experience doing this. But as I'm sure that everyone who is doing this or people who are doing this, you're familiar with, we've got a mix probably of new people and people who've done this in the past. And what I find is that the people who've done this in the past, you guys are all, familiar with the fact that this is every team is different. Every team does things a little bit different. Some teams have different timing systems and different setups. So we can't go into a lot of depth on how everybody does it. Our team uses a Colorado starter and the SST timing system. I don't have any experience with like the Dolphins or the CTS system, but they're generally all the same. So if you have any SST questions, I'm here for that. I'm also involved. My kids also swim year round as well for Planet Swim. We used to be on Loggerheads. Now we're on Planet Swim. And as part of that too, I'm working with that team to get trained up and to be a certified USA Swimming stroke and turn judge, but also a admin official, which is basically the technical term for what we're all here for tonight. And in doing that, right now I'm an apprentice on both of those. I'll be a stroke and turn, I should say, maybe in another month. And then the admin stuff, I'm doing that afterwards. I'm doing that mostly to help our team. Now, because we're recording this too, I'm omitting my contact details, but I'm going to go ahead and put these in the chat. If you have any questions going forward, I serve as the role not only for the timing operator and the scoring operator for Durban Dolphins, the Durban Crossing Dolphins. I'm also a resource for all of the other teams, for all of you guys. So if you have a question about how something works or any of that stuff, I'm here for you. Now, the only thing that I would ask, let's see, all right, so I just put my contact info in the chat for the meeting. That doesn't get recorded, so you might want to write that down. I would ask that you please use my email as my preferred way of contacting me. I'm a software engineer and a teacher. I run my own business for teaching like software engineering, and I'm frequently in front of students. So the phone is one of the most inefficient ways to get a hold of me. Email is always the best way, and ideally texting as well. I would ask that you probably only use my phone number if you've got an emergency. Now, I saw this multiple times. I was actually definitely one of the problems in the past. But for those of you who are new setting this up, you definitely, and I'm gonna say this a couple times tonight, but you definitely want to make sure that you have tested out your system and then everything is in pretty good shape and good to go. Your timing setup, your starter, make sure Meet Manager is set up, you're able to capture times, all that stuff. Make sure that you test that prior to a day of a meet. I also host meets. on the meets. The weekends that we are not hosting a meet, it's not uncommon that I'm traveling or on my way back from a business trip that I've been on. And so if you have a problem like the morning of a meet, calling me to get me to help you, with the problem that you've got, I'm probably not going to be able to be a whole lot of help. Because I'm going to be working either on our meet, or I'm going to be, on my way flying home from a conference or from something else I'm doing. So email is going to be the best way, and to make sure you test this stuff ahead of time. All right. The other thing I would ask is that if you do reach out to contact me, I'm not really good at knowing who's associated with each team, and also what your setup is. So the more information you can give me, the better it is that I can help you. So tell me, identify your team. Hey, I'm Andrew. I'm from Durban Dolphins. We use SST. We use for timing. We use this for a starter. We don't use touchpads. We're all the plungers. That stuff that really helps, because if the level that I can help with different things is all going to depend based on what you're, based on my experience. All right, so let's talk a little bit about what we're going to go through tonight, what you can expect from this, and then we're going to do what the anti-expectations are. So what we did from last year, and I'll go through it a little bit in the review, is that last year we did this same admin training, and we did it online. We are all people that are using a computer, right? So the way we did it is that I did a bunch of demos last year on all the common stuff that you would need to do in terms of setting up a meet and executing a meet, and then the post stuff that you would have to do following the end of a meet. So that video is posted. We'll have a link to it in just a minute. That video is posted up onto YouTube, onto my YouTube account, but it's also linked from the league website. So if you have not watched that, if you're new to this and you have not watched that, I would strongly recommend that you watch it. I tried to get everybody to watch it before this meeting tonight, but I'd strongly recommend that you go take a look at it, because it has everything from how to seed it, how to load the rosters, how to load the entries, how to do scratches, how to move people between different lanes if you need to do that for whatever reason during a meet, and how to address a lot of the common stuff. I'll have a slide here in just a minute that actually tells you everything that we covered in that. In addition, the one thing that's new this year is that the league decided to upgrade all the teams to the latest version of High-Tech Meet Manager, which is what we use to run our meets. Different teams use different things to run their team, like Team Unify or Swimtopia. A lot of us in the past use High-Tech Team Manager. But for the most part, all of us use, or everyone really uses, High-Tech Meet Manager for executing the meet on the day of the meet. So we're going to talk about the upgrade process, talk about what that looks like and how that is a new thing from this year. It's a really good thing, and I'll explain why we did that in just a few minutes as well. I'm going to add some resources at the very end, and then I'm going to open it up for any questions that anybody may have. I didn't get any questions ahead of time. So I got one question ahead of time that I think I already addressed with that one individual, but I didn't get any questions ahead of time, so I don't have a whole lot to go through with it. Anti-agenda, what is not being covered here? So I'm not going to cover any of the team management applications or services like Team Manager or Swimtopia. That is stuff that some teams, we do it, like on our team. I don't work with either one of those. That's all done by our president and by the board. I'm just responsible for running like the day of the meet and stuff. So each one of those, I would just check with those. They all have help and stuff associated with them as well. We're also not going to go through the process of creating entries. That is something the coaches do. That is not something that generally that we do. Of course, your team may be different. That's perfectly fine. I'm not judging anything. Just saying that that's not generally something that we go through. That's something that they do, and they give us an export of all the entries. I'm also not going to go through tonight. I'm not going to go through the different timing systems. It's really hard to do that, not only because we have between 8 teams, we have 3 different timing systems that we're all using, and you really need to have the physical setup and everything set up for that to be able to really go through all that stuff. We're not going to do that tonight. So timing stuff, we're not going to do. I see one question here from Jamal saying, do we need to bring our own computers? So I'm going to answer that in two different ways. First way is you need to check with your board and your team. I think your Nakati. You need to check with your board and your president on what the expectation is. Some teams have computers that they use that are owned by the team that they use. In our case on Durbin, we don't. And so, yes, I have to bring my own. And so I have to have Meet Manager installed on my computer, and then I use it there. So Meet Manager requires Windows. So I run a Mac, so I've got to run a virtual machine, set that up. I used to use a Windows device, but it died a couple weeks ago. So we have some fun stuff to deal with. But yeah, you may end up having to bring your own machine. That's really, that's a team-based decision or an internal team decision. So I would redirect you back to the Nakati board and your president to discuss that. Okay, so first thing we're going to run through is upgrading to Meet Manager. So in the past, we have all been running different versions of Meet Manager. Generally speaking, we were all on version 5. Version 5 was very old, about 5 years old, came out in 2014, and we've been patching it along the way. We had multiple problems with it though, or challenges with it. It may have worked great for you, but behind the scenes, number one, we did not have enough licenses for it. I don't know what the decision was prior to me being involved, but we did an inventory of it this past summer or this past winter and found that we did not have enough licenses. Like we thought we had enough that we needed, and we were deficient by a few. We also did not have the correct add-ins purchased and licensed for some of our different installs based on what different teams have. And so we looked, and it's also, the version we were using was also way out of support. So the league decided to purchase upgrade licenses and new licenses in cases where we needed it for Meet Manager version 7. And so all teams have a license to Meet Manager version 7. If you already have Meet Manager installed on your computer, you can install it side by side with the existing one that's already there. In fact, if you looked at my computer, you can see I've got Meet Manager 5 and Meet Manager 7 both installed side by side. So you can have both, you don't have to uninstall anything. The way that we do all the install, it's actually very simple this time. Instead of needing a CD, you're going to download a install. When you download that install and you go ahead and run it on your machine, you're going to be, after you install it, the first time you launch it, you're going to be prompted to install and or to enter in a license code after installing it. I don't have those listed here in the webinar that we're doing tonight because we're recording it. We're going to post it to YouTube. The reason for that is because these license codes it's kind of like currency. Anybody can use it. So these are all sent to everyone who signed up for this training. There is I sent an email out on April the 15th. I sent another one out yesterday. If you don't know what your license code is, then email me. But each team has a specific license code that they are supposed to use. Each set of add-ons is tied to a specific license code. So when you install it, it's going to ask you for your license code, and it's going to reach out to High-Tech and figure out what you're licensed to use. It's important you use the right one because some licenses are going to work for certain teams with a specific setup. So like, for example, we use SST. So we have to have a special code or we have to have a special license to be able to use our timing system SST to leverage it with Meet Manager. But other teams don't have to do that. Some teams use Dolphins as a backup system. That requires a special license. So make sure you enter in the right license code on your machine. You are allowed to install Meet Manager. This is the part that it's a little bit different from previous years. So if you thought you knew, if you thought that what I'm about to say is wrong, trust me, I'm right on this. And what we were doing in the past was incorrect. It was breaking their licensing agreements. You are allowed to install Meet Manager on your computers that you use for your team at your pool. So if you've got 5 different people who may be running it, who may be executing a meet for your team, you can give this to them, and they can each of those 5 people can install it on their computer. we you can't use two versions of Meet Manager at the same time. Like you couldn't have two open up the same Meet database at the same time. It doesn't work like that. We don't have that set up. But if you did, each one of you five could go through and use it at your pool. This is it's an honor system. So you are only allowed to use the license of Meet Manager that's been assigned to your team on computers at your pool when you are hosting the meet at your pool. You cannot take your computer, like Durban I cannot take my computer and go over to Nocatee and do a meet over at Nocatee. That is breaking their licensing agreement. I couldn't even take my computer and go use it up at Cecil. That's breaking their licensing agreement. Champs is already taken care of. Don't worry about that. But that is the licensing, the way the licensing is set. You can't share licenses between teams. You can't share them between pools. The ones that we have are the most affordable ones, and they're the ones that make the most sense for our league. And so each license code is tied to your team. So if you are looking for the email, if you're not sure where that email is or what your license is, I put the subject of the email so you can do a search and the history of your email and the date that I sent it, of where you can find that information with both the link for the download and also what your license code is. Now, I cannot stress this enough. I said it a minute ago, I'm going to say it again. Please test your timing system with your new install of Meet Manager. I'll just give you one case in point. Last year, I took our entire timing system about 2 weeks before our mock meet. I hooked it all up in our living room. We have 2 strings. I hooked everything up, had plungers on each one of the different setups for all 6 lanes that we normally run. Both strings, we have one for each end of the pool. Hooked it up to my computer, went through, tested it with the starter, started an event, made sure everything was running, made sure that we were capturing times, and found 2 of the boxes on our setup were not working, and also found 2 or 3 of the buttons were not working. That would have been absolute hell had I noticed that the day of a meet, even if it was the mock meet. It would have been even worse if I noticed it during the meet. But thankfully, we figured it out ahead of time, and we contacted SST, and we got those things resolved. I really can't stress that you don't want to wait and assume everything is going to work. This stuff you want to make sure that you don't wait to the last minute to do this test, all right? Okay, so let's talk a little bit here about the review of last year's training. So for those of you who are new, where can you go find this training that had a whole bunch of stuff in it? We had a bunch of different topics that we covered. This covers pre-meet tasks, meet tasks that you handle during the meet or immediately before the meet, the morning of, and then post-meet tasks as well. You can find a recording or a link to this recording on the St. John's Summer Swim League website that you see linked here on the slide. And you can get to it when you go to the site. If you go to Meet Resources in the menu and then select User Guides, you will find at the bottom of that, it will be a link to the 2018 training. Tomorrow, or whenever I get a notification that this has been, that this recording is finished, I will add this recording to it as well, all right, to that right after the 2018 one. All right, so just so you're familiar with this, so I'm going to come over here. Let me open up this link so you can see it. So I'm going to the site. I go to Meet Resources. I go to User Guides down here. And then if I scroll down, I'm going to clean this up. We're going to get rid of these guys up here since we don't have Meet Manager User Guides. The User Guide in version 7 is actually in the app now. But if I scroll down, you see here's the April 2018 Meet Execution Webinar. So I'm going to go through and select this. And then here is the recording that we did last year. And it's the exact same thing. So you'll see here that there's little thumbnails. You can see we went through a bunch of demos and showed how to do different things throughout the meet, how to seed it, how to get the reports out, heat sheets, and all that stuff. All right. So I'd recommend that you go watch that on your own time. What kinds of things did we cover in that? So pre-meet, how do you create the meet database? How do you import rosters? How do you import entries? How do you seed the meet? How do you create sessions? How do you combine events and modify heats? How do you create heat sheets? How do you set up Meet Manager with your timing system? How do you enter scratches, relay adjustments, all that stuff that you do prior to the meet starting. That first one there about creating the meet, like creating the database, we will have templates, meet database templates that you can use that have all the order of events that have been ratified by the board, so that you won't have to worry about setting that stuff up. You'll be able to just start by saying, import my roster and import my entries. Now, during the meet, we have a couple of things that we covered as well, such as entering times from your timing system, or if you have manual entries, in the case of a timing system failure during the meet, you had to use your timing sheets. Cover how to do that, cover how to enter disqualifications, cover how to flag a swimmer as swimming an exhibition. So meaning that their points or their times don't officially count towards the meet. They just are, like, if it's they're swimming more events than they're allowed to swim, and it's been agreed by both teams they could do that, but something had to be an exhibition. And then we also had how to score an event, and then how to handle the scenario when a swimmer missed their heat. So different things that we can do there. I would get familiar with those different things. I'd run through a couple different scenarios on your own. I will tell you that, when we run our mock meet, when we run our mock meet at Durban, when I run our first home meet as well at Durban, if you don't have a meet that day, if you're brand new to this and you want to see how it's done, you're more than welcome to come to our mock meet and shadow me, and I can show you how we do stuff, how we do the setup and all that stuff. If Durban is not hosting a meet and you would like someone to shadow and give you guys a hand with your meet and getting set up, making sure that it's the first time that you're doing it, reach out to me. I can't guarantee that I can be there because I travel a good bit for business, and I may not be there. If Durban's not hosting, I may have scheduled a business trip that week, but I am more than happy to come over and give you a hand on the setup, time permitting. Just again, just like the other thing, don't wait till the last minute. Let's make sure that we get this on the calendar. We talk about it ahead of time. And then finally, the last thing that we cover inside that webinar that we did last year is creating final reports and all the results. Okay, so now I want to walk through a handful of resources here. A lot of the stuff, when I first did this, when I first started serving this role and working with our team, different things would come up during a meet or ahead of a meet, like a swimmer missing a heat or two swimmers being in the wrong lanes. So Johnny Smith and Susie Jones were supposed to be in lanes 1 and 2, and they ended up being in lanes 2 and 1. They were transposed. So how did we address that? How do we move people around? All those different scenarios, I found that I had to keep the high-tech Meet Manager help stuff. Some of it was okay, but I always found like I had to find the person that did it before me and ask them, how did you do this? How do I fix this? How do I fix this? And I hated having to do that. Over time, though, you just kind of learn this stuff. Well, that's great, but what about the people who are brand new to this? One of the things that I found in starting to become certified as a meet official for USA Swimming is that the Florida Swimming, so Florida, the local swim club, which is part of USA Swimming, they have a whole administrative official packet. This thing is huge with a ton of really good resources here. In fact, I'm showing my video here, so if you guys can see my video, this thing is huge. It's got a ton of help info too, of like, here's different scenarios. It's got stuff in here showing that, if you can see that, of screenshots from Meet Manager, and like, here's what happens on splitting times. Here's what happens on, what the rules are, a couple different rules and stuff. Now, I want to be very clear about something. This is just a resource. This league is not part of USA Swimming or part of the Florida LSC. So I'm not I'm not going against any, I'm not saying you should go against any of the rules and stuff that have already been defined. Our league has our rules and stuff, but I think that is a really good, a really useful resource, simply as something on a, how do I do this in Meet Manager? Okay. Some things you need to double check on and make sure with your team president and with the head meet official, the HMO, are you even allowed to do it? Like, for example, once the meet has been seated, that happens what, like on Wednesday, Thursday or something? Once the meet's been seated, you can't add any more heats to the meet. That's a rule. So even though Meet Manager lets you do it, our league has that rule. So you want to read the bylaws and make sure you understand what the bylaws and the supplements and everything say on what you can and can't do, and just familiarize yourself with that stuff. Okay. This slide here points to where that printout that I had, this slide points to where you can find that. It's got a ton of really good stuff in there, and I find it to be a good thing to have printed out with you at the swim meet when you're running a meet, or like I leave mine on my iPad, and on my iPad, my backpack. It's just a big PDF. So you're going to go to the USA Swimming, the Florida Swimming website, the Florida LSC, and if you scroll down, actually, let me show you where this is. So if you go to the site, so let's go to home, and if I scroll down, there is an officials section. So I'll go to the officials section, and then if I go to officials, I think it was clinics. Yeah. And then if I scroll down on the officials clinics, is this one right here, the administrative officials packet. So admin official clinic materials, you want this one right here. Okay. All right. All right, so additional resources that I've got for you. Couple things here when it comes to, like, say, the hardware. When you want to connect your timing system to your computer, like how do I set that up? It all depends on your timing system. I can't speak for all of them, but SST has a manual that they provide with their hardware and with the app that you have to run on your computer, with a bunch of instructions on not only how to run the app, but how to hook everything up, and then how to also connect your two computers together. So this is a question that came up today in an email, or yesterday in an email from somebody. I don't see them on the list here, the people who joined live. But the question was, how do you go through and connect your two computers together? There are a lot of different ways to do this. SST has something in their manual. There is nothing special about Meet Manager and running a swim meet and whatever timing system you're using on connecting two computers together. I can provide you I have some videos up on my site. So if you see here, I've got the Durban Crossing Dolphins reference videos. That YouTube link is a link to a playlist in my YouTube channel of a handful of videos that I've done when I can't be there for the meet and somebody else has to end up running it. So I recorded these a couple years ago, and also had a document that I can provide as well, that walks through how we end up doing it. From a high level, what I would strongly recommend you do is you're going to have two computers. You don't have to have two. There's ways you can do it with just one, and I know some teams do it great with that. I look at it and I think that is a significant challenge to try and keep up with the meet by having just one computer. At a minimum, I would recommend you have two computers and two people. One person is responsible for monitoring the timing system, and that computer is hooked up to whatever timing system you're using, Dolphins, CTS, SST, whatever it is. That computer is the one that's going to be storing all the times. Your other computer is going to have Meet Manager, and that's the one that somebody else is going to be connected to in some way to your timing computer, and you're going to use the Meet Manager computer to pull times in from the timing computer. All right. You're also going to use it to put in disqualifications, to score the meet, to score events, score the meet. So you've got two people working kind of side by side. We always have two people doing that. One person's always watching the timing. The other person's working is the one that's managing Meet Manager. It is possible to do it with just one person, but it is like it's like trying to herd cats. I wouldn't recommend doing it. The one thing that I would strongly recommend that you definitely do though is leave all the times, have all the timing data on the timing computer, right? The reason why I say that is because you're going to want to have your meet manager computer. You're going to want to have that one pull times and import them from the timing system. If your network goes down, if the connection between the two computers goes down, if the timing system is saving data to a different computer than where the timing app is running and everything's hooked up, your meet has to stop, right? You have to stop everything until you get your technical problems fixed. I don't know about you, but I don't want 200 families looking at me, looking up at the timing desk going, why in the world are we still standing out here in the heat at 9:30 in the morning, or now this meet's going on till 1 or 2 o'clock? This is ridiculous. At worst case, I want to make sure that we're collecting all the times, the meet's still going on. And worst case, I've got to take the timing computer and the meet manager computer into air conditioning at the afternoon of the meet, and then import all the times into meet manager after the fact, and import all the disqualifications and all that stuff. At least the meet continues to go. You don't have a lot of people that are staring you down, and you're not sitting in the sun on a hot June or June day or July day throughout the entire while people are trying to figure out the computer stuff going on. So that's why I would recommend make sure the timing computer it's set, it's solid, got power, saving all the data on that machine. And then what you would end up doing is, as a bunch of different manuals show, is you share a folder. You can map that folder over to your meet manager computer, and then meet manager is set up to say, I'm going to go suck times in from that map folder, which effectively is pulling it across from the timing machine. Okay. This to me is the hardest thing to do. It's the hardest thing to get right, but it is also one of the easiest things to get set up before the meet. You can try it tonight if you want. Okay. The way we do it at Durbin is we use a cheap little Wi-Fi router that you get from any of the tech stores, Best Buy, Amazon, whatever. We connect both computers to the same Wi-Fi network. We do not have internet at our pool, or we do, but we don't hook our computers up to the internet. So once they're both hooked up and they're both connected to the same network, then one can see the other one and can map over to them and share files. There are other options that people can use. There's like USB cables that you can connect two laptops together. There are patch network cables that you can set up between the two. I mean, whatever floats your boat, go for it. Personally, I have horrible success and like random failures when I use the USB option or the Ethernet option. You might not, and if not, that's great. I'm glad it works for you. I go with the wireless option and have a router sitting on the desk that they're connected to. And then again, I cannot stress it. I've stressed it a couple times. I cannot stress this enough. Test, test, test. Test your entire setup. You can test an entire meet running in your living room. I would strongly recommend you do it, including with the starter. Just warn the dogs and warn the rest of the people in your house that you're going to fire off an event when you start everything. My dogs hate it when I do that, but I'd strongly recommend that you definitely test it ahead of time. And that's everything I got. So let me ask, let me go ahead and see, some people have shared their video, but it looks like they're either fuzzy or whatever. But let me, where is it? There. So you can unmute yourself if you have a question. But we've got another 23 minutes here. I covered everything I wanted to cover that was new from last year. But aside from that, I would strongly recommend go watch last year's recording. And if you have any questions, now's a great time to go ahead and ask them.
Hey, Andrew, this is David Martin with St.
Hey,
John.
David.
How are you? Hey,
Good.
Thanks for your time tonight.
Sure.
Quick question. So obviously we didn't have league meets last year, or dual meets. We ran some some of our own neighborhood meets last year just to keep the neighborhood engaged, if you will. Mm-hmm. So Swimtopia is new to us, and I know you weren't getting into the pre-meet stuff tonight, but A quick question: when the two teams merge their meet data together, that occurs in either Team Manager or Swimtopia or something. Then you have the one, I think it's an HY3 file or something comes out, and that goes into Meet Manager, correct?
No, not really. So when you look at Swimtopia, and we're just talking about the team management stuff, they have a product that they do with the meets, but most of us aren't using that. I don't know if anybody's trying it, but we're not. Between Team Manager, Team Unify, Swimtopia, we just use that stuff for two purposes. One, team management and entering in the entries. From there, so let's just say Durban and Southampton, we're going to have a meet this weekend. I would have my president or my coach tells me that their entries are done, and then I go into Swimtopia and I export the entries. You would then do the same thing with your Swimtopia or your team manager. You would export the entries, and then you would, if say I'm hosting the meet, you would email me your roster file that you exported from Swimtopia or team manager or whatever, and the entries. And then I would import those along with my same files into Meet Manager to create the Meet database.
So the merge happens. The merge happens in Meet Manager.
Correct.
Okay, that's all I need. I was just curious. Okay.
Yeah. So team manager and team manager or Swimtopia or Team Unify, all of that stuff is just for the team. They don't look at anything else.
As long as we have the HY3 file or whatever that is, that format. Okay.
Yep. Yeah. And Swimtopia will, even though they're not high tech, they do export an HY3 file that we can use. We did it last year, and actually it ran really well.
We did it. I just wasn't sure where that merge happened because I had never done that before. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Thank you.
Sure. Does anybody else have a question?
Yeah, hi, this is Kirk.
Hey, Kirk.
Yeah, a couple questions. So we do have to bring our own computers. Are there any specific hardware requirements? I have a Surface Pro. I'm thinking that might not be a good choice of device. Just for
So I had a Surface Pro 4 that I used for Meet Manager all year, and I used it to run champs the last 2 years.
Okay.
I used it and it ran fine. Meet Manager doesn't have really steep requirements. They've got, I would look at the site. I would go to the high tech site and find out what the requirements are. But I shouldn't say this, but I'll say it. But the app is so arcane that you could probably get by with a laptop that's almost 4 or 5 years old. In fact, we actually do. We've had to use. I've used my daughter's machine that I got at a conference almost 5 years ago that we use for timing and as our backup Meet Manager machine for our team. So it doesn't. You should be fine.
Well, what about connectivity, like USB devices, or I'm not sure how the timing stuff hooks up. Is it through USB?
So do you know what timing system you guys use?
I do not.
Do you know which team are you? Nakati. Oh, you guys use I think you use CTS.
Nakati has System 6. This is David with St. John. We've talked before. They have System 6. We've worked together before.
So I think usually the way that they work, Kurt, is that it's going to be, you have a USB, you have all the timing stuff kind of goes into some harness, and then you connect that into, you're going to connect that to your timing system, your timing computer via USB. That's how SST works. So you do need to go through and have it plugged into to SST. We had, last year, I think, because the Surface only has, I think, one USB port, I had to have a USB hub so I could have, because we had a printer that was on the desk as well. We had a printer that was on the desk as well that we had to use to print out our heat sheets and stuff, and I had to have multiple USB ports, so I had to get a hub to get it to work.
Okay.
Cool. You guys had a couple questions, or just the one? Or
I did have a question. I watched the video last night, and I remember you touched on something, but you didn't really show how to resolve it. You talked about running a report to see if a kid was in too many races, if they were in 5 and they're only allowed to be 4, and then you talked about how you're supposed to make them exhibition in a couple of them.
Yeah, let me see. I should be able to. Let me go back. Let me share that my machine again. Where is it? Parallels, Windows. Okay. So let me grab, not docs. Let me grab one of ours. Dolphins meats. Let's just grab the random meat. File open. Desktop. Why isn't it there? Desktop. Oh, it's because it's VM. Let's see. See users. See desktop. Okay. So here, let's say like this is so this is the run screen in Meet Manager. This is where you're going to spend most of your time on during the meet itself. And where I'll do a lot of the edit stuff on the morning of the meet from the screen as well. So if I know that if I see someone, let me get out of these relays. So let's say I've got one of these four swimmers needs to be marked as exhibition, because I know, like, somebody has told me, one of the coaches has told me that, yeah, we're going to have him swim, but we're adding him in, but it's not going to count. This EXCH, all I would have to do is check that off, and that now these times won't count to get any points or anything once I rescore the meet. Right now it shows that Hayden here has got 7 points, but now that I've marked it as exhibition, if I rescore the meet, as you can see right here, that would like undo his points. To see a list though of like everything, like here are all my athletes, I can see everything they're doing. So let's take, let me just grab one of my kids, just use them as an example. So Steven didn't swim, great. Oh, sorry, Steven didn't swim that summer, he had surgery. So here, so my daughter, she's got 3 events that have been marked, 3 individual events. And if I wanted to see all of the relays here, so there we go. So I have relays shown as well. So she swam 3 individuals and 1 relay. If, let's just say coach wanted, this is how I can see all the stuff that she's been entered into for this meet. So those yellows and the check mark shows that they've been entered. Let's say I want to also enter her into the 25 breaths. So it's telling me that she's already in the maximum number of events that have been set up in the settings for this meet. So do I want to go ahead and do it? And I can say yes. So now she's flagged as she's got too many events that she's in. She's in 4 individuals when she's only supposed to be in 3. So what I can do is come over here to exhibition, and I can mark it as exhibition. So this is a way to see it. The athletes screen is going to allow you to see it by athlete, whereas the run screen is going to show it to you based on event and heat. So it just depends on where you are. The athlete screen is great before the meet when you have the name of someone that you need to mark as exhibition. But if you're like in the middle of a race, or a race is about to come up and somebody has had to be marked as exhibition, it's easier to go to the run screen and to find them that way, because you can actually, you have better context of where you are, what you're doing. Does that answer your question?
Well, I'm kind of more concerned. Let's say you discovered by accident, maybe the coach signed them up for too many events. And what's the process to pick which one they shouldn't be in?
So 2 things. If the coach signs them up for too many events, first of all, inside of whatever they're using, Meet Manager, Swimtopia, Team Manager, or one of the other team apps, it should block them from being able to have too much stuff. That's 1. But 2, let's just say that it got past that somehow they didn't have their stuff set up correctly, and it allowed them to add them to more events than they were supposed to. When they export the entries, and let's say that they send it to me, and I went to go import the entries into my Meet database, I'm going to get an error that says you have this many exceptions. And so what I can do is come over into Meet Manager, and I can say reports, and there is a exception report. There you go, exceptions report right here. That will give me a list of all the problems that are currently with the meet. I would take that, I go back to the coach and just say, here's a problem, tell me how to fix it. The nice thing is that our job is not to go to make decisions on those things. That's the coach's responsibility. And if there's a debate between that goes in between the presidents, and it's really out of our hands. They just tell us, here's the change that we need to make. And that's what I just showed you a second ago. So if something comes up, the system does a pretty good job of flagging it that there's a problem. We also have this exceptions report, and then the coaches are responsible for actually fixing the problem or telling us how to fix what to do.
Okay.
I have a question here from Stacy saying, do you need to configure both computers for sharing? And if so, is that on the tutorial to show how to configure? So I don't think so. I think you only have to tell the computer, the timing computer that is collecting the times, that has like SST or whatever it is that you're using. You have to have that one configured for sharing. And yes, that does, the videos that I have in the little walkthrough, the videos do show that. So let me show, or see, where was the slides that I just had up a second ago? These resources. Let me go to that link. Stop this. Also, the videos here that I was talking, that I referred to in the ones that we use for Durbin, there's no sound on them, so don't think that there's something wrong. This one though, where is it? This is the first one. There should be a playlist. Where's the playlist? I might have grabbed the wrong link on there. Anyway, so here's where I've got a couple videos here. How to create a folder share on our SST computer. This one walks you through that. I can get the correct link that has the entire playlist for all of this, but there's actually, let me grab that right now while we're here. View the full playlist. So I will stick that here in the chat. There we go. But you can see this is, sorry. These are all the different things that I've got set up here. So again, we use SST. So it's, how do you create the folder share on your SST computer? How do you map the SST meet folder as a drive over on the Meet Manager computer? And then how do you export the schedule and the scoreboard files? That's effectively that's taking the Meet database and exporting data from it for SST, so that the person running your SST computer can see that lane 4 is supposed to be empty. Lane 5 has Stephen Connell in it, so it has the actual names in it. I know some teams don't do that. Like I was somewhere last year when someone who was using the Dolphin system, it just had lanes 1 through 8 were running with no names of anybody in there. They just collected data. They didn't actually put the people in there. We choose to do it, but it is whatever you end up wanting to do. If you guys have SST though, these videos here walk you through all these different little things. And it was designed, I was out of town and somebody was taking over and they went through all this stuff to kind of get everything up and running. All right. And it's just, all you have to look at is just really 1 through 5. That's the only things that are interesting. This last one doesn't apply anymore. So hopefully that answered your question, Stacy. I will tell you, when it comes to that sharing or mapping files between 2 different machines, if you're having trouble with it and you're Googling around trying to find an answer for it, don't try and find something that's like, how do I map two Meet Manager computers together, or SST and Meet Manager? Just go generic. How do I map a drive between 2 computers on Windows? It's there's many more results with that. That's an incredibly common thing to do, but you'll have an impossible time trying to find it. How do I do it with Meet Managers? Like, there's nothing special about Meet Manager. The timing system is just writing files to a folder, and you just need Meet Manager to be able to point to that folder and suck those files in. Does anybody else have any other questions? I hope this has been helpful.
Hey, Andrew, this is David, real quick.
Yeah.
So once you have the 2, we were talking about the merging, do you have a document here or a video that shows the steps in Meat Manager between getting all the entries from both teams and actually getting the meet completely set, like the merging and all that?
I don't have that, but that should be, I may have, let me see if I have one thing. This one, or is it this one? I don't think that's it. What do I have? I have something. Let me see if I can find it really quick. I just had this earlier today. Someone was just asking me about this.
Well, if you can, you don't have to spend time here if you can find it offline. We just have no one on the team. It's been 2 years and nobody's coming back that has run Meat Manager. So we're going to be some newbies. Setting the equipment up, I'm comfortable with, right? The System 6, that's fine with me. But it's these nuances of Meat Manager that we might need some reference points for.
Look at the, what I would do is look at the, let's see, look at the help in Meat Manager. It's pretty decent.
Okay.
To walking you through that stuff. If you need like sample stuff, I'm a pack rat, and so I've got all of the meets that we hosted over the last few years, and so I kept like
we can kick through it.
Okay.
I'm not worried about it. I was just
Okay.
asking. Thanks.
Sure. Yeah, I would use the help. I mean, I did have docs on it at one point, and then I realized that the company that made the product actually has docs already. And I just figured it's better to run off theirs than it is to, restate it in my own words. So. We got 5 minutes left. So my contact info is in the chat for anybody who has a question. If in the future looking at stuff, email is going to be the best way. And again, I know I've said it a few times, I can't stress it enough though, but test your setup. If you want to test the whole, I want to test doing like running a meet, importing times and stuff like that. I've kept stuff from all of our old meets. And so I could send you, the roster file and the entry file from 2 teams. You can simulate creating a meet. I've got all of our timing data as well. This is all the data from one of our timing systems. So I can say, here's a couple things, try and go through and import it like it really happened. So I can go back and I can reset up a meet. So I saw 1 or 2 people that you just said, hey, can you send me something? If you would just email me. I have a list of emails, but I don't have any names with the email. So I don't know who sent it to. So just shoot me a mail and ask me for it, and I'm happy to send it to you.
Will do. Hey,
Yeah.
Quick question. Does this include, this licensing include Meet Mobile?
Mm-hmm.
Is that, okay.
Yeah. So
Okay.
we try to use it. We try to use it. So when it comes to Meet Mobile, it works fine. It works just fine for all of our stuff. The only thing that I would caution you with Meet Mobile is if you're using Meet Mobile and you're pushing out the results to the families, I would push them out on a very conservative basis. I say that because it'll
Yeah, if there's DQs and stuff after you push it out, yes, yeah.
There's DQs. There are.
Right.
So the way we do it, when I do it at Champs, things will get pushed out when you score an event. And so what I usually do is I usually have a notebook sitting next to me, and I have a list of all the events. And as I'm pulling times in, I have a column that's like, how far have I pulled times up? What event have I gotten through? And then after that is how many of the timing sheets we've gotten. How far am I up through all the timing sheets that have been collected from the manual stopwatch timers? Because if there are times that the timing system got that that need to be validated against the real timing sheet, I need to do that before I score it. And then I also have another column, which is how far have I gotten up through the DQs? Once I get through all of those, then I feel comfortable scoring the meet. Or scoring that event. If you do it really quick, you're opening yourself up to an irate parent coming over during a meeting saying that they would swear their kid did better than that.
I was just curious if it's in the licensing. Okay.
Yeah, it's part of the license.
I know there's some discretionary items that every team needs to think about with it because, I've seen it. I've seen the downside.
Yeah, well, it works great. I mean, if you have internet access from Meet Manager, it works great. We don't have easy internet access at our pool, so I end up usually a couple times during the meet, I will disconnect my Windows machine, tether it to my phone, and push out a bunch of stuff, score a bunch of stuff on Meet Mobile, and then undo it and go back to processing the meet.
Yeah, that's what we've done in the past, but sometimes people ask for it. I was just curious on the licensing, so thanks.
Yep. Sure, no problem. Anybody else before we wrap it up? Okay, so I don't see any other questions that are here. Again, shoot me a mail if you got a question. I'm happy to give you guys a hand. Issues come up earlier, always easier to address. That's just the one thing I really wanted to stress, because I had one or two people last year who were frantic trying to get their meet up and running one day, and it's like, I'm hosting a meet too, and I can't. I got 200 families looking at me right now. So, Chris, do you have a question?
No, I just wanted to say thank you. Appreciate your time. Very helpful.
Sure, no problem. Thank you. Cool. I'll go ahead and wrap it up then. So I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording. Once that's done, second I've got a chance to upload it to the site, I'll do that. I will send another email back out to everybody that the recording is up, that the same email that I've used over the last 2 weeks. You're also more than welcome to, I'm in that, there's a Facebook group for the league. I believe anybody that's running, that is in like a management role, like all of us, are welcome to be in that Facebook group. Please feel free to, ping me on there as well. That's always good too, because, everybody else it benefits from everybody else as well. So happy to help. And just for reference to, I'll put a link on the St. John's Summer Swim League site with a link to that playlist that I have listed there in the chat, since the slide was incorrect. So I'll make it easy for you guys to get to that as well. Cool. So thank you very much, everybody. You're welcome for hosting it, and let's have a good season. Let's hope Champs doesn't get lightninged out again, or my laptop doesn't get splashed with water again. All right. Take care, everybody.
Thank you.